Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Hello, Poland.
This is my first video update from Athens, Greece on this Wednesday morning. Let's talk about Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, or maybe now he should be called Poland's favorite son, because Joe Biden, he gave quite a speech yesterday in Poland to a sold-out venue. He actually sold out the venue, Joe Biden. I think that's a first for Biden. But people turned up, and they brought their cameras, their camera phones, and they were waving flags, U.S. flags, Ukraine flags, and a couple of Polish flags as well. And they were eagerly waiting for Biden to make his appearance on stage. And they started to play some music, intro music to, get the crowd, moving and get the crowd ramped up. And then Biden, he turned up, he walked over to the podium and he looked at the crowd and he said, "Hello, Poland." Like a rock star, like the rock star that he is. Wow. I was waiting for like Bono to show up or something and sing Beautiful Day or something like that during this event. What a freaking circus that was. Man, what a circus. So Biden gave his speech in Poland, and he didn't really say much of anything, to be quite honest. I mean, the same old stuff that we've been used to hearing from all of these guys, from Biden and Ursula and Morel and all of them. The same usual nonsense. Putin bad, Putin dictator, Putin authoritarian, Putin brutal dictator. Russia will not win, Ukraine will win, democracy will win, freedom will win. The U.S. is democracy and freedom, Ukraine is democracy and freedom, Poland is democracy and freedom, EU, democracy and freedom. Anyway, the usual stuff that we've heard them say over and over and over again. The easiest job in the world, the absolute easiest job in the world, is to be a scriptwriter for the Biden White House. The absolute easiest job in the world, at least if you're covering the Ukraine beat. If that's your job, to write speeches and scripts for Biden, for Ukraine, that has just got to be such an easy job. You have all the lines, they're all canned messages, Okay, now let's put the "as long as it takes" line, let's put it here in the middle this time around. And how about democracy? Democracy will win. Yeah, put that there. Freedom. Yeah, let's insert that towards the end. And you have any Putin is bad or Putin authoritarian lines there? Yeah, give me that one. Give me that one. Putin is a brutal dictator. Put that right in there. Also, let's put in there, and this war was unprovoked. Yeah, let's put that somewhere towards the upper third of the speech. Yeah, perfect. That's it. That's all you have to do if you're a scriptwriter for the Biden White House and you're covering Ukraine. I mean, Biden said nothing. He said nothing. He didn't come out with any kind of plan or what the goals are or anything. He didn't say anything. It was just an empty freaking speech. It was just gibberish, the same nonsense that we hear from Biden over the past year when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to anything, to be quite honest. Biden's speeches are just so empty. There's nothing to analyze. There's nothing to discuss, nothing of substance. So let's try and find some things that Biden said during this speech that were of interest. Let's try. First off, let's talk about what Duda said, the Polish president, because he actually believes that Biden is the man, which is pretty incredible. That someone actually believes that Biden is the man. So Duda said that the U.S. Constitution is one of the foundations of our civilization. Okay, I wouldn't argue with that. And he declared Joe Biden the leader of the free world who was not afraid to come to Kiev, unless he got Putin's permission to come to Kiev. He wasn't afraid until he got the green light from the Russians. But yeah, the leader of the free world, according to the Polish president. Man, Poland, what are you doing? What are you doing? So Biden said, let's see here. He said that a year ago, everyone was trembling, waiting for the fall of Kiev, but Kiev survived. He said that we will defend democracy today, tomorrow, and forever. Freedom is at stake. Putin is an autocrat. The only thing that autocrats understand are the words no. Free people refuse to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. He also said that. He said, God bless Poland, which received millions of refugees. He said Putin tried to starve the world, especially developing nations in Africa. He's trying to appeal to Africa because they're very worried. Biden is very worried about the fact that Africa has told the Biden White House to buzz off. Most nations in Africa have told the Biden White House to buzz off. They've kicked France out, that's for sure. They've kicked France out, and they're basically telling the United States that they don't really want to deal with the Biden White House. I think it was the leader of Uganda who said the other day that they stand with Russia because Russia was always their friend for the many, many decades. I think it was the foreign minister, if I'm not mistaken. And he said for many, many decades, the Soviet Union and Russia always stood by Uganda's side. And they always treated the people there as equals, something that the West never did. I'm paraphrasing, but I think I'm getting the essence of what I think the foreign minister of Uganda said the other day. But the U.S. is very worried about the fact that they're losing their influence in Africa. What else did Biden say? He said the decisions that will be made in the next 5 years will determine the future. He also said that when referencing NATO, he said an attack on one is an attack on all. He pulled that line out.
And let there be no doubt, the commitment of the United States to our NATO alliance and Article 5 is rock solid. And every member of NATO knows it. And Russia knows it as well. An attack against one is an attack against all. It's a sacred oath. Sacred oath to defend every inch of NATO territory.
That's pretty much it. I mean, autocrats only understand one word. No, no, no. Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. Never, he said.
Appetites of the autocrat cannot be appeased. They must be opposed. Autocrats only understand one word. No, no, no. No, you will not take my country. No, you will not take my freedom. No, you will not take my future. And I'll repeat tonight what I said last year in the same place. A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never be able to ease the people's love of liberty. Brutality will never grind down the will of the free. And Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. Never.
Russia knows it as well. An attack against one is an attack against all. That one really got the crowd going. An attack against one is an attack against all. So does that mean that NATO can attack the United States now because the United States attacked Germany with the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline? I don't know. How exactly does that work? What are the rules when a NATO country attacks a NATO country? I mean, what happens then? Is it an attack on the one NATO country? Is it an attack on all NATO countries? Does that still hold, or is that kind of ignored? So that's pretty much it. I mean, that was his speech. And then kids came up to him, as he ended his speech, a bunch of kids approached Biden of course, kids approached Biden. They had to bring in the kids upon Biden's request. And they were carrying American, Ukraine, and Polish flags. And Biden was hugging and sniffing them, and that was that. That was the big speech from Biden in Poland. And if you are in the Zelensky administration, I would be looking at that speech, and I would be like packing my bags and getting out of Ukraine in a big way. I would be like house hunting in Miami, like right now, because after watching Putin's speech, 2 hours of substance, detail, confidence, vision. After watching Putin speak for 2 hours in a very professional, organized manner with no hysteria and no yelling and emotions and just craziness like that. And then you saw Biden speaking for whatever it was, 20, 30 minutes, however long he spoke. And you listened to what Biden had to say, and you looked at the whole stage setup, and it was like a rock concert setup, and the whole thing was just a circus. And you watch that, you would be like, this is not going to work. We're screwed. If you were in the Zelensky regime, if I was there, I would be like, we're screwed. We are absolutely screwed. That was the clown world, was Biden's speech in Poland. And so let's read what Dmitry Medvedev had to say about Biden's speech. Let's see here. What did Medvedev say? It's always interesting to get Medvedev's take. He talked about Putin's speech and suspending the new START 3 treaty. And Medvedev made the point, as all of the Russian officials are stating, which is that, and Putin himself, he stated this, which is that how do you expect us to allow your inspectors to come in and see our weapons facilities and our nuclear facilities when you're actively engaged in a war against us, when you're an active participant in a war against us in Ukraine? How would they even imagine that the Russians would allow that? It doesn't make any sense at all. No country would do that. You're attacking us, but we're going to let your inspectors to come to our country and to look at how we produce weapons, and to look at our nuclear facilities, and to inspect our weapons manufacturing. I mean, it's just common sense. This was completely expected that Russia would suspend. They haven't pulled out. They've just suspended the START treaty. So Medvedev made that point, and many Russian officials, including Putin, when he announced it, that was the point that he made. But here's what Medvedev said about Biden's speech in Poland. Biden addressed the Russian people in front of a crowd of Poles. In fact, he preached a sermon in the traditional American messianic vein, adjusted by senile marasmus. He piled on high words about how important it was to defend democracy and that the U.S. had no intention of attacking Russia. It looked dishonest and ridiculous. Who is this strange grandfather, anyway, speaking with a bewildered look from Poland? Why is he appealing to the people of another country at a time when they are full of domestic problems? Why the hell should we listen to a politician from a hostile country that exudes hatred for our homeland? Why should Russian citizens believe the leader of the United States, which has unleashed the most wars in the 20th and 21st centuries, but blames us for our aggressiveness? A person who devotes all his weakening intellectual capabilities only to ensuring that Russia suffers a strategic defeat. One more thing, to paraphrase a famous expression Biden said in Warsaw: if Russia stops its invasion, it ends right now. If the Ukrainians stop defending themselves, it will be the end of Ukraine. This is a refined lie. The truth is quite simple. If Russia stops the special military operation without winning, there will be no Russia. It will be torn apart. If the U.S. stops supplying weapons to the Kiev regime, the war is over. You know, Medvedev is, or was, from what I understand, quite an accomplished lawyer. So here you are seeing the legal mind of Medvedev at work. And Biden did say during his speech, he did say this line: the United States and the nations of Europe do not seek to take control or destroy Russia. The United States does not plan to attack Russia. Millions of Russians who want to live in peace with their neighbors are not our enemies. That is what Biden said during his speech. And Jake Sullivan also said something as well. This is what he told reporters. Jake the Snake Sullivan said, "No one is attacking Russia. There is a certain absurdity in the idea that Russia is under some kind of military threat from Ukraine or someone else." Sullivan then said, "Russia ends the conflict in Ukraine and returns home, the conflict ends. But if Ukraine stops fighting and the United States and the coalition stop helping it fight, then Ukraine disappears from the map." So that is what Sullivan said. And the rebuttal from Medvedev was, if Russia stops the special military operation without winning, there will be no Russia. It will be torn apart. If the U.S. stops supplying weapons to the Kiev regime, the war is over. And so you have Sullivan and Biden during his speech saying that the United States and Europe does not seek to destroy Russia, speaking to the Russian people, as Medvedev talked about in his statement that I just read. But tell that to the Iraqis, tell that to the Serbians, tell that to the Syrians, tell that to the Libyans, because it was the United States, it was Gaddafi that agreed to give up his chemical weapons, or the chemical weapons program allegedly that he had going on. And he agreed to let inspectors in and to dismantle all of his weapons manufacturing or chemical weapons or anything that he had going on. Gaddafi agreed, and in exchange, he would be part of the U.S. world order. Right? That was the agreement that was kind of made. And then what did the United States do to Gaddafi and to Libya? The same exact thing that they would love. I mean, they would love to do the same exact thing to Russia. So when the United States, someone like Biden, when Biden or Jake Sullivan, the U.S. elite, these neocons, when they say that, we don't want to harm the people of Russia. We don't want to harm the people of Libya. We don't have anything against the people of Iraq. If you believe that, well, then I have got, what do I have? Here you go. I've got a tree in Athens full of oranges or mandarins or whatever, whatever those are. I've got a whole bunch. I've got a whole bunch of trees. They're just all lined up to sell you, all of them. So yeah, no one's buying this statement from Biden or Sullivan that the neocons don't want to destroy Russia. That's absolutely ridiculous. This whole conflict is all about destroying Russia. The entire conflict. That is what this is about. So we have this hysteria now with China that we've seen kind of bubble up over the past 2-3 days, and the collective West, the EU, the Biden White House, they're absolutely going crazy with this revelation. All of a sudden, it's hit them that China and Russia are are working together and that they have this kind of unspoken alliance. And all of a sudden they've understood this, and now this is a huge red flag, a huge red line for the United States. And all of the collective West media is now writing articles and reporting about the growing relationship between Russia and China, and how this is a catastrophe for the U.S. and for the neoliberal world order. And this has been going on for many years. Since the Obama administration, the cooperation between China and Russia has been growing, but it was the Bidenopolis White House that really accelerated this cooperation and has turned it into an unspoken, a de facto alliance. That's the Biden White House that did that, because the Chinese, rightly, they recognized that if the neocons were to destroy Russia, well, then China would be next. Having Nancy Pelosi travel to Taiwan didn't exactly help the U.S.-Chinese relationship either. But I find it very interesting that all of a sudden the collective West media is really concerned about the relationship between China and Russia. And I think a lot of this is connected to the fact that the Chinese officials, Wang Yi, he is in Moscow right now. He met with Patrushev. He's meeting with Lavrov, or he met with Lavrov yesterday. And the Chinese now are just openly saying that the cooperation with Russia is like number one on their geopolitical foreign policy priority list. This is what's most important to them is a cooperation with Russia, this continued cooperation with Russia on multiple levels: economic, defense, even society, even traveling and visas and stuff like this. It's all accelerating this alliance, this unspoken alliance between China and Russia. And it looks like we finally have officials in the United States, from Josh Hawley to other officials in the United States, recognizing that an alliance between China and Russia is it can't be beat. It can't be beat by the United States, and they're starting to panic. And of course, they're very worried that China would start supplying Russia with weapons. It would start producing ammo, which is something that I don't think Russia really needs. I mean, it seems like they have everything under control, and I don't really think that Russia has asked China for any kind of help in producing weapons. But that's the fear. That is the fear from the collective West, because they're still under the belief that Russia's running out of weapons, and they don't want China to step in and start producing ammo, because if China starts producing ammo, well, then the U.S. and the EU would have no possible way to keep up. And so you even have Boris Johnson yesterday speaking in the UK Parliament, saying that the Russians are running out of ammo.
Almost all his objectives. He's failed to take Kiev. He's been sent scuttling from the Kharkiv region. He's been forced to evacuate Kherson. He has cost the lives of at least 60,000 Russian troops, and with probably over 100,000 injured. In the areas he has occupied in Ukraine, he's created a new Flanders, fields of mud and trenches and blasted trees where months of high-intensity shelling and bloodshed produce gains that could be measured in yards. He's been forced to such desperate expedients as sending prisoners to the front or terrified members of ethnic minorities recruited from remote provinces. And as my right friend, the Foreign Secretary, pointed out in his powerful speech, he is running pitifully low on the technically advanced weaponry that he increasingly needs.
He threw out that line again yesterday, which just shows that the elite class in the collective West, they're either lying in a big way, or they're completely clueless. Maybe they're getting wrong intel, but Boris Johnson, once again, he gave a speech and he was like, Russia's running out of ammo. How do you figure? How do you figure, Boris the Clown, that Russia's running out of ammo? When everything we're hearing now is that Ukraine is out of ammo. It's not running out of ammo, it is out of ammo. And there's this mad scramble from the collective West to try and find the ammunition for Ukraine. The EU is going to take money out of their peace fund to figure out a way to purchase ammo for the Zelensky regime. So there's just a general panic in and around Russia and China, and a lot of it has to do with the trip from Wang Yi and the trip that Xi Jinping is going to be making to Moscow. That's freaking them out. That is freaking the collective West out in a big, big way. They're starting to sense that the unipolar world order is quickly approaching its end, and they're getting very, very worried. Well, Meloni's not worried. The Italian prime minister doesn't seem to be too worried about things, because instead of engaging in diplomacy for Italy and trying to figure out a way to, I don't know, maybe follow Hungary's line and broker some sort of ceasefire or some sort of peace deal, and maybe engage with the Russians and figure out a way forward so that this conflict can be put to an end, Meloni decides to get on a train and travel to Kiev. Of course, with the permission of the Russians, make no mistake about it. Meloni called up the Kremlin and said, now that Biden traveled to Kiev and you gave him the green light, can I also come to Kiev? And the Russians said, yeah, you can travel to see Zelensky as well. And Meloni made a trip to kiss the ring and bow down at the feet of Zelensky. But she was going to be different. She was going to be a different type of prime minister, wasn't she? No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't at all. She's the same as the people before her, and the person after her will also be the same. They will be the same. There is no difference between these rotating EU leaders. The one steps down, the one that replaces them is no different. And she had to go to Kiev and submit to the globalist neoliberal avatar that is Zelensky. She had to bow down and pay homage to neoliberalism. And that's what Zelensky represents. But Italy is considering now sending fighter jets. There are reports that Italy is going to send fighter jets, or they're talking about it. And there are reports in the U.S. that the Biden White House, in its panic, is warming up to the idea of ATACMS, long-range missiles, and fighter jets as well. So we're starting to see the Biden White House, as it realizes that things are going really bad, and things are getting very desperate. They're now saying, you know what, maybe we can figure out a way to get F-16s and long-range missiles to the Zelensky regime. There's no profit in the ammo. Let the Europeans take their taxpayer money and let them figure out a way to find the ammo. What the U.S. is going to do, what the military-industrial complex is looking for. They're looking for the big-ticket items, the big money makers. Those are the fighter jets and the missiles and stuff like that. So sooner or later, maybe within a month or two, we'll probably get some F-16 talk and some long-range missile talk coming out of the collective West. Whether it'll be the disaster that the tanks were, because the 350 tanks turned into something like just 50 tanks, we'll wait and see. But the most important part of all of this is that new contracts are inked with the MIC, and they can get to work producing fighter jets and missiles and stuff like that to replenish the inventories of the European Union and the US. That's the important part to all of this. get those contracts signed up with the military-industrial complex, and they want the big-ticket items, the fighter jets. That's where the big money is at. So we have that bit of news as well, and let's do a clown world, and we'll wrap this video up. I was thinking of making the clown world about Jungle Joseph Borrell, who gave some statements about China. Some pretty clownish statements, but I don't know. Joseph Borrell makes a lot of clown worlds these days. Borrell said that the EU is going to increase their support for Ukraine. He said this at like a NATO meeting. He said they're going to increase their support for Ukraine with ammunition, and then with weapons tomorrow. He's alluding to fighter jets and missiles. And then he started to complain about how China supplies weapons to Russia, and that would be a red line for the EU. Oh my God. I'm sure China is just shaking in their boots when Borrell delivers his red lines. Borrell said that he explained to the Chinese. He said, I had to explain to Wang Yi the big difference, to tell him what threat the war in Ukraine poses for the Europeans, because Wang Yi, he questioned Borrell, and Borrell was bothering him about all of this weapons stuff. Wang Yi asked Borrell, he said, well, you guys are supplying weapons to Ukraine. China's policy is that, we don't, as China, we don't supply weapons to countries at war. But even if we did, why are you guys so concerned about that? You guys are constantly supplying weapons to Ukraine. What do you care if we supply anything to Russia? And Borrell said that he had to educate the Chinese official as to the difference between supplying weapons to Ukraine and supplying weapons to Russia. So nice of Borrell. Jungle Joseph, he's always educating people, isn't he? Talking about gardens and jungles and having to explain to the Chinese the difference between the EU supplying weapons to Ukraine and China supplying weapons to Russia. That's Jungle Joseph for you. But I won't make him my clown world. He won't be my clown world. Let's turn to the king clown himself, Zelensky, for today's clown world. And he was hosting Meloni in Ukraine, and he was asked to comment on Berlusconi and some of the comments that Berlusconi has been making connected to the conflict in Ukraine. And Zelensky said, and I quote, I don't think Berlusconi's house has ever been bombed. He's never had tanks in the garden. Nobody has ever murdered his relatives. He never had to pack in a hurry and flee at 3 a.m., all thanks to Russia's brotherly love. That is the statement that Zelensky said, but Zelensky was unaware of the fact that Berlusconi was actually born in 1936, and he actually saw the first Allied air bombings of his native Milan as a child. So once again, Zelensky was very ignorant to the fact of the reality of the situation, and that Berlusconi did indeed witness the effects of war in Milan, in Italy. So that's the end of this video. I will finish it up there. theduran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin, and go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.